I keep track of the finances for our family. At the end of the month, I catalog it all in an Excel spreadsheet. And then I look at how much we spent for what purpose to know what we spent and like what's left over. It's like gesturing at taking care of our finances rather than actually like declaring this is the budget. Let me evaluate throughout the month. Like we're going to spend this or not spend that. And I'm noticing in regard to finances, I will gesture at doing the thing versus actually doing the thing. Like that's awesome that, I now know what we spent this last month, but it's already spent versus this is the specific parameters of this coming month of where we're going to live between when the money's gone from that category. We just don't spend money. So this way would invite a lot more discomfort and actually increase our savings account in a more significant way than just looking retroactively at what we have.
As humans, we prefer the path of least resistance. We crave convenience, the payoff without the price. But when our lives revolve around comfort, it doesn't deliver. Living in perpetual comfort leaves us weak and asleep. This podcast is an invitation to flip that script, to choose the unlikely path, to get the life you really want through voluntary discomfort. This is Strong and Awake. I'm Dane Sanders.
Budgeting. It's one of those triggering words for people. I know we've talked about triggering words in the past, but that in particular sounds like one of those things that can make people run for the hills. And I don't think I'm alone in that feeling, because what that feels like to me is like, okay, I have to spend less. I have to sit down and go through all these spreadsheets. This sounds hard, so I'm not going to do it. You might even hear investing or even the aspirational side of things, and people run for the hills when they hear that because they're like, I don't want to figure out the accounts. I don't know how that works. I heard my friend got ripped off by this manager. There's so many reasons why we choose to not actually do anything about improving our finances, whether that's paying off debt, whether that's saving more money, whether that's making more money. And I'd love to
giving.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm just going to ignore tithing because, my Netflix subscription is really important. There's so many excuses and reasons that we make. And I'd love to dig into that. And we're not, just to be clear, we are not financial advisors. Go talk to your people about that. So this is not, financial advice. But I hope this is a resourceful conversation as we explore.
I know it will be
a lot of what is behind these things.
Yeah. At the very least, for folks who are listening, tune into your feelings right now. Just the word. Mitch said it right at the front end. Every word has a story. If I say the word money, something comes up for you. Some people feel good, some people feel bad. And if you want to drill down to more specific, they might feel guilt, or they might feel shame, or they might, whatever the thing is that they're experiencing, or delight and whatever their experience is. But words like budget, like the mechanisms by which we right size our financial position, can be very difficult. Accounting in general, taxes, savings for tax day, the amount of anxiety. I wish we had like a globe, or not global, at least in the United States, because this is April 15th when we do taxes, except for almost all of us who kick it to October.
I was just going to say that.
But at whatever point of the year that you're up for spending your money in the direction of the government, there's radical anxiety that people experience, and shockingly unnecessarily so, when you develop a practice around your money. But I just want to acknowledge in the front end, these are feelings. In fact, we've already lost some listeners already, starting with the conversation around, like, you tanked our audience, Mitch, by saying the word budget right out of the gate. But if you happen to still be here, first of all, good on you. But second, there's gold in the conversation today that I think, I know, I can say from personal experience, like recent personal experience, that we're going to help you find a way forward to an actual promised land. And I know that many people have listened to conversations from, really thoughtful leaders in this space. I think of, Dave Ramsey being a very prominent one. And even if you have a mixed feeling about him as a kind of a personality in public, in the public, marketplace, what strikes me is he has for decades been helping hundreds of thousands of people get out of debt. I mean, it's unbelievable, his net economic impact, just by bringing principles forward. And he's so compelling in the cases that he makes. It was very common, and I suspect a lot of folks who are here, you've had moments where some Dave Ramsey person in your life said some set of ideas, revealed to you, exposed you in such a way where you went, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. I'm in a bad place. I didn't know how bad it was. And you resolved to make a change. And not too different from New Year's resolutions. Like, now this is the year. This is the moment. No, I must get out of this bad position. And like we say every single time, that moment, that initial commitment that you're making, it's really, really important. It's just insufficient. There's so much, like there's a couple more steps that you can implement every single time that when you do, things will shift. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We just want to say up front, by the end of this conversation, what we want to promise you is you will have crystal clarity as to what the one right next thing is for you to go do to move in the direction of what will be helpful. And what we want to take our time with, though, is to deconstruct why things break down. And even before that, make sure that people understand that there is a place of freedom that's available for you. Because I know there's people out there that are just like, it's just not possible. I'm going to be in debt for the rest of my life. I'm going to be in a bad financial position. I'm always going to be playing from behind. I'm always going to be hand to mouth. I'll never be like my neighbors, my friends, those people, the rich people who have it all together. And I want to say those are lies. They're just not true. It's shocking to me, just like in MWOD and Men and Women of Discomfort, when I see people go from like severely overweight and pre-diabetic and in an awful position, how in such a narrow length of time, a tiny time horizon, people turn that whole conversation radically in a different direction. Now, I don't mean like in 6 days, but I certainly mean in 6 months. I certainly mean in a year and a half, like radical transformation is available, radical. And it's no less true for your money. But
Go ahead.
But Mitch, I know this is a conversation that you've been in a lot. Talk about your life on the other side of making some of the hard decisions you've made to put yourself in a good position. And I'm going to share some of my stories too after you do.
Specifically around money?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think back to the early days of my marriage, getting out of college with all kinds of debt. And, we could have done what a lot of my peers were doing, go get an apartment, live a little bit beyond our means, live comfortably. We're only young once. We don't have kids once,
YOLO, baby. YOLO.
Go live it up. But we, chose to piece together hand-me-down furniture, lived in, my wife's sister's like guest house. And, those were sweet time. They were hard as far as like, I think I was making 30 grand a year. But there was something so freeing about, we're not eating out all the time. We're not doing these things and we're still enjoying, but we're putting all this money towards paying off my debt. And that discipline in that regard made for, a couple years of, those kind of being a little bit more mindful, investing a little bit more strategically, our time and our money, and how we went and had dates. They were free, etc. But that yielded all kinds of fruit. One, that was probably more impactful to the healthy launching of our marriage, not having the stress of that over us, than the fruit of having a more reliable car or having an apartment with a view. That's like the first major example that comes to my mind. I'd love to hear yours too.
Yeah, I love that you're going back to those early days. One of my very first professional jobs was I was a dorm dad at my alma mater, resident director, and I just recently looked at how much money I made. I was looking at historical money year to year. I made $17,000 that year. And
Whew.
that was I know, right? Now, what's unique about that season, though, is $17,000. But I worked at a college where they provided food and they provided housing,
Mm.
and I was never more rich than that year. It was pure profit. It was just like I had no expenses. I had no, my wife and I, and eventually our first kid, like we were just kind of walking around campus doing life. There was always socials and food and events and go watch a basketball game or baseball game or a show of some sort. And it was just like, wow, we're fully entertained, we're fully fed, and we're fully clothed, and we have a roof over our heads. And the reason I reference that is because I think when people live within their means, they actually, it's remarkable how little money they need to make in order to flourish in life. It's like if they're entrepreneurs, if they have a low spend, if their burn rate is low, the pressures are dramatically less. You talked about impact on marriage, dramatically less. That said, after those early years when it was kind of forced on us, we didn't make much income, but we had our bases covered. When I started taking over bases, I didn't have those habits that you had. I actually made choices in the opposite direction, and we did get new cars, and we did live beyond our means. And even in the midst of seasons of significant revenue production through books and speaking and traveling and doing a whole bunch of stuff, our spend rate was higher than all the money we were making. And so looking back, it's just shocking to me that we could generate that kind of revenue and spend it so quickly, naively. But then some really dire things happened, and we got into a really bad place financially. We ended up short selling a house in the late 2000s in that 2007 crisis or 9 crisis or whatever it was. And we had to go to I was a photographer at the time and actually moved into like the richest neighborhood in town renting, simply so that I could be around people who didn't lose all their money in that financial crisis and they would still hire a photographer. I embedded myself in my clientele, and we ended up kind of making our way through that season, and there's a lot more to the story, but it was about 10 years ago that I just got really serious about what is getting into debt look like. And we stopped buying new cars and we started paying off old cars. And we started getting really aggressive with, a little extra money would come in and we'd pay that down. And it all got all the way down to there was one thing that we had no more consumer debt. We had no car payments, which is still the case for us. And but we had this one agonizing, seemingly justifiable bill of our kids' educational debt, because we had helped them all go through college, and I had built up a 6-figure debt that just felt like this gorilla on my back. Like, this is never going to get done. I got weddings in my future. I got 3 daughters. It's never going to get taken care of. And it was amazing to me just recently. And we'll talk about what the motivation for this decision was along the way in a few minutes. But I had this incredible experience very recently where we had sold a house. We lived in Northern California. We sold our house. We had some proceeds from that home, and we were coming down to Southern California. We're going to go buy a house, but we gutted our savings. It wasn't all of the money we made, but we gutted our savings and wrote a really fat 6-figure check to the U.S. government, actually, it was a lender connected
Sally
to
Mae.
Yeah, right, exactly. It was connected to studentaid.gov or whatever it is, and it was a really, really heavy check to write. And at the time, even with awareness of all the things, all the principles, done my snowball with Dave Ramsey, had the savings on the side for a rainy day fund, did all the stuff, I was just like, I can't do this check. This check is too much. We can't, if we do this, we can't buy a house. And what will that mean? I didn't say this out loud, but I was feeling it. What will that mean to those around me? How will my status adjust? How will people see me if I'm renting in the midst of, being my age and all the things? And we wrote the check. We're not in the market for buying a house. We're renting a house right now. But we are debt free. We don't have any debt, none. Like I could easily go on Dave Ramsey and do the debt free scream of paying off, I bet you, $250,000 in debt over the last 10 years. And that's no small thing, even while kids are still in college, even while now we're paying cash for our kids at expensive schools. And but it came from dozens and dozens of individual decisions. And that's the fundamental thing I want to talk about today. This is not about an overwhelming, I'm not telling you the story so that anyone can listen to it and go, well, good for Dane. And, he figured it all out. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm basically saying is I've screwed this up more than most. And I think this voluntary discomfort practice has such practical implications on our financial stresses and this is something that people underestimate in our community. They join because they want to get in shape, new year, new you, whatever their thing is, but they don't realize what we're actually doing is exercising muscles far beyond physicality, where you start actually being able to do really hard things in every category of your life, including money. And so the main thing I want to communicate to this part of the conversation is wherever you're at, however dire you are experiencing your world, there were seasons, and I'm not lying when I say this, it's pretty historic now, but there were seasons where I was like, I'm worth more dead than I am alive. Like I looked at my life insurance policy, and I wasn't suicidal, but I was still doing the math, which is a really bad sign. And I know there's a lot of people who are in that place, a lot of people. And I just want to say up front, if that's where you're at and you're listening to this, I'm so glad you're tuned in today's conversation, because there's a path forward to radical freedom. And it relates to voluntary discomfort. And that sooner than you could imagine, the promised land you dream of that you actually think is not available to you're going to find your way there, and you're not going to do it alone. So I just wanted to paint those plot points first as we get started. But Mitch, let's talk a little bit about what people normally do when they start going down this road, and where they trip up. Where do they stumble? What do they try that doesn't work?
Yeah, we heard some at the top of the show, but I think there's lots of examples of that. And I think they fall into a few different categories. One is the proactive, ignoring, it'll sort itself out. I'm not feeling the pain now.
Yeah, right.
The wishful thinking. I think a lot of people will go into this is what one of my tendencies is to do. I don't have enough information to start right now, so I'm not going to start. I'm simply going to plan and research and read the book and get this course and get this consultant. I don't know how to start, so I'm not going to
spend money to save money. Yes.
100%. 100%. Or I think there's another category of, especially if it has to do with income or paying off debt or something like that. There's some deficit that you're trying to make up. It's instead of addressing the leaky bucket, how do I just pour more and more water into this thing? Instead of attacking it from
revenue
both sides.
Covers a multitude of sins. Totally.
Those are the categories.
These are also reminiscent, man. I've lived all these out. They're 100% right.
Same.
Yeah.
Am I missing any, or do we want to get more specific and nitty gritty with it?
I guess I think one thing we just want to say out loud and be overt about, there is wisdom in getting insight from other people who figure this out. There is complexity in some situations that I want to acknowledge. Some of you guys have really complex situations financially, even pressure socially to fit in with the Joneses. You also are feeling, whoever the Joneses are, the poor Joneses all these years.
The poor Joneses and the Karens of the world.
Yeah, that's right. In my case, I felt very justified. This is a noble debt, right? To pay for my kids' college. And if I'm just, it's amazing to me how few clicks it takes to get another significantly high 5-figure loan. It's unbelievable to me. And they add up. I have 4 kids, right? 2 are out of college. One's a senior, one's a freshman. And that's just college. So it's not even counting the cars and the braces and the like stuff. So I just recognize there's complexity. Second, I want to say, because it's complex, it feels like I need a comprehensive, complex plan to deal with it. And I would argue that sometimes the macro complex view is where people get tied up. They just trip. They go, I have good intentions, but I just get flooded and overwhelmed, and I'm just going to go pay attention to something else right now. Put my head in the sand. And it's interesting, even just the discomfort of staring at it just a little longer, of deciding like, is this reality? Am I actually in the position that I'm in? For some people, that's the most critical thing to focus on. One thing. And if you get anything out of today's conversation, it's just this. Pick one thing. Don't pick 7 things. Don't have a comprehensive plan. And for some of you, that means, yes, you need to learn how to budget. That's it. But not for everyone. For some of you, it's like, stop spending. Like, put a freeze on things that are going on. For others of you, it's going to be a pause, like put things in your wish list on Amazon and not in your shopping cart in Amazon. And all these, but in all cases, here there's a common denominator. And this is how you can tell what the right next thing is for you. It's whatever is most uncomfortable. It's whatever is that you can voluntarily raise your hand for and say, this would feel uncomfortable and I'm going to do that. And I have enough vision to go minimally viable discomfort in that direction. And if you can figure out a way every single day to do the one voluntary discomforting thing related to money, you're making progress. You're moving in the right direction. You have momentum, you have traction. And if you start stacking the days, James Clears talks about, you are making votes for who you want to become, your future self. And this is the invitation, friends, is the reason so many well-intentioned, good principled, great strategies and tactics don't work for so many is because it's just too much. It's just an overwhelming sense of things. And we run the risk, even on today's show, talking about it the way we have, because we're trying to like identify as broad a spectrum of come-froms as we can, of where people are wrestling from. But there is a common, I think, distinction on how we approach this, practitioners of voluntary discomfort. And that's, it doesn't get complicated. It's just, what am I resisting the most? Well, that's your opportunity. As Ryan Holiday says, the obstacle is actually the way. And before him, Marcus Aurelius. And this, that we've known this for millennia, right? That it's less important that you have the right comprehensive plan, and more important that you're taking action on one singular thing.
And I think that's the beauty, bringing up Dave Ramsey. Like, that's the beauty of a lot of these things, or even when you are an RD, like there's a simplicity and a limit, like you limit optionality, in the Dave Ramsey context, it's like, cut your credit cards, use envelopes of cash. Like, it introduces friction. It simplifies things in a certain regard. You're not just swiping all over the place, making it too easy. And as an RD, like, you didn't have to decide, what's our electricity bill going to be this month? I'm not sure. And, or what are we going to eat? It's there for you. So you can have like a certain kind of, you can focus on things that are more important. I love that.
Manageable. You're not flooded.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, Mitch, because that cognitive load that you carry of all the things I'm supposed to do, I guess I'll do nothing in practice is the challenge. And I think, it's funny that the two things that people who have been a part of the Men and Women of Discomfort community talk about the most are, number one, the community. They love that they're not doing it solo. They're with other people. But number two, especially when you first start at MWOD, for the first 3 months of your experience at MWOD, you make no decisions except for participating. And just by participating, we make all your decisions for you, or we don't. You make them. You raise the white flag of surrender, releasing on your preferences, and you just do what's prescribed. And what so many people have told us, hundreds of people have told us, that was the difference maker for them. They didn't have to decide whether they were going, like what they were going to eat and when they were going to eat and how much sleep they needed to get and how much water they were going to drink. And it was all predetermined. And they would even do weirdo things like getting in cold water and holding their breath and meditating and journaling and reading books that they never would have read before. And they didn't have time for any of it before, but then all of a sudden, just because of the reduction of cognitive load, a whole bunch of time showed up in their life. And that became the operating system for how they navigated life. And that two, like, knockout left and right, community, reduction of cognitive load, so that you can figure out the one right next thing for you. Make a minimal viable practice, something you touch every single day that moves you in the direction of what we're talking about here. Talk a little bit about how you, about ratcheting. Like, when you think about your experience within the MWOD community and how every single week we add another habit, that every new habit for a lot of us in our community, it's like, I can't add another thing. There's no way that's possible. And the experience that you've had and also you've witnessed with members in our community, relating with getting that one thing and turning it into two things. How do you see that playing out, and why do you think that people see so much success?
You know, the name of the show and what we talk about a lot is becoming strong and awake for love's sake. And I think what ratcheting does is it really leads to that awake part, the awareness. Sometimes we adjust, we adjust to new habits, we adjust to new patterns, we adjust and settle. And a ratcheting kind of acts as that opportunity to kind of shake things up and bring greater awareness to this thing. Whether that's ratcheting up your workouts, or maybe I'm going to do a phone fast, once a week or something like that. It
or
brings
just ban your phone from your bed alone. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
It gives you that opportunity to kind of wake up and realize the space that this thing has been occupying, or how you've been relating with this thing up to that moment. And I see that every round, like whether it's their first, 3 months with us, or this is their third year with us. There's opportunity to ratchet in all different categories. And I've experienced that too. So I think it's that, but then it also gives you, with that new perspective and with that new kind of awareness, like the very act of doing those reps and like choosing to ratchet up, choosing more voluntary discomfort, like begets more strength. And it's like, and I think that, and oftentimes it allows you to show up more for others, and for that others, or the, for love's sake piece of the phrase. So that's what I see ratcheting doing. And it's uncomfortable. It's hard.
That is the common denominator. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard. Yeah. And it's not fun, especially in the beginning. Like, as you're like making this adjustment, it's not fun. It's not fun to not spend money at first, but then you realize, like, you shift from viewing and relating with this thing in a scarcity mindset, like money. For some, hopefully, that are listening to this, it didn't trigger stress. It didn't trigger that. It triggered, what can I do with this? This is opportunity. I'm sure it's different walking into a Home Depot as a construction worker versus like me walking into Home Depot, like thinking about building a fort for my kids. It's like you're relating differently with it. It's not like, oh, this laborious work. It's like, no, there's opportunity. I can do something with this. And I think that's ratcheting up, kind of like helps you go from that, not just commitment and release, but to the embrace part of Credo.
There's this cultural moment of whether January 1st is your New Year mark, or I talked to someone the other day, their birthday's in March. So March is their, fresh kind of take, or regardless of what time of year you're listening to this conversation, I have a hunch right in front of you is a new starting line, a chance to go again, a chance to have day one. And the bravest of you will make day one today or tomorrow. But you won't put it off. And if there's a call to action on today's podcast, it's really to be crystal clear on what the starting day is. Like, when are you actually going to start a new relationship with money? And especially if you feel a deep sense of conviction and like you want to barf, like you just want to be sick thinking about this, that's a great sign. It's telling you the exact direction you get to go. You don't need to go. You clearly don't need to because you haven't up until now. But from now on, what if you got to go? What if you could actually create the kind of possibility that Mitch is describing? And so that's my invitation first is to get really crystal clear, like right now, pull out a piece of paper, write down a date. And if the date is today, put to date. If the date is tomorrow, have a conversation with your stakeholders, significant others in your life, and make it tomorrow. But get buy-in right now, get the community around you, and then reduce the cognitive load by not overcomplicating it. Whatever you want to barf about, that's what you're going to do next. That's your minimal viable practice. The singular thing you're going to do every single day. Now, there are broader strategic things you can do, like a budget. There are broader strategic things you can do, like learning how debt snowballs work, or subscribing to Dave Ramsey's website, or other guys. I think of guys like Mike Michalowicz has done a really great job of this for people who help their businesses. That was a massive change agent for me.
Ramit Sethi.
Ramit, 100%.
Yep.
There's a lot of really thoughtful people out there who can be very, very helpful. But we're not talking about educational resources right now. Don't make the starting point, this is when I'm going to learn about it. You're going to learn along the way because you're going to get hungry for learning and you're going to go find those things. What we're talking about is an embodied, uncomfortable thing. And if that embodied, uncomfortable thing, like I said, for me, on my habit list, it started off with like flossing my teeth. It can be so small, right, in my overall practice. But in this category of finances, again, make it real. Like, I don't buy anything without a week moratorium to think about it, a month moratorium, a day moratorium, whatever it is. You put a freeze on your spending. For the others of you, your budget's going to be in the back of a napkin, and you're going to say in broad strokes, this is how much money I make. This is how much debt I have. I'm going to dedicate 10% of my gross income to plowing against debt right now. And you're just going to figure out how to live off the rest. Whatever the thing is that you're burdened by, that is the right next thing for you. And lock in on it. Tell someone else about it. Stop negotiating about it moving forward. And as you do, you too can ratchet up. I can't overstate, though, that at some point, as you're moving as an individual forward, finding a collective who will stand with you while you're doing it can make all the difference. If you're near a local faith community, I have a hunch there's a thing called Financial Peace University. Go sign up. If that's your deal, like that, they'll walk you through the steps. They'll remove the cognitive load on what to go do next. But I also will say this is squarely in the lane of what we do every single day in our community. And we don't want you to miss out. What if on top of you're getting your money in order, you would actually be having a much broader vision of getting your whole life in order? Your physicality, your anxiety, your concerns around prediabetes, your concerns around not getting enough sleep, your concerns around just not being able to say no to the donut shop or to the creamer in your coffee, or whatever these categories are where it feels like the world has you and you don't have it. Friends, Men and Women of Discomfort is a community that guarantees a move towards mastery, a move towards you gaining the agency you're craving in every category of your life, and including your money. And our hope is if that's you, get into a conversation. So much so, and I don't say this very often, but it's a reality. We never let money get in the way of people participating. There is a cost to participate in Men and Women of Discomfort. In this lane in particular around finances, I want to just say out front, if that's you and you're like, I need a community like this, reach out to me. Have the uncomfortable, your right next thing is to have an uncomfortable conversation with me at askdane.com, and we'll talk about it. We'll find a way forward for you to gain access to a community that guarantees transformation. But it's not going to come to you. I'm not calling you to make this happen. There's some uncomfortable right next thing for you to go do. And my invitation for you is to take it.
Well, on that note, visit MWOD.io/apply.
I think that's the right next step. Yeah.
And or do that and go visit askdane.com.
Well,
Start
I'll
a
give
conversation.
people a little precursor. If they go to askdane.com, the first thing I'm going to say is, well, have you applied yet? So I think you're right. I think application is right. And then we'll start a conversation. But make no mistake that if that's the part that makes you just feel gross, don't worry about budgeting today, because budgeting, even though budgeting is going to be in your future, budgeting or whatever your trigger words are, they will all get taken care of if you are the kind of person who never misses a day of doing the financially uncomfortable thing. If you're going to do the financially uncomfortable thing day in, day out, this will become your reputation. This is going to become what you're famous for to those around you, because you're going to take ground here. And we are thrilled whenever we get a chance to walk with people in this. And when the reason it lights us up is because not only have we experienced it ourselves, we're with you. There's not much better a feeling than to know that you're changing things, not just for you, but for people around you. My kids, one last story. I got a text from my son yesterday. He's a 25-year-old young sales professional, and he just got a $4,000 bonus after taxes. And he was so excited to send me a text to say, I just wrote a check for $1,000, 25% of the money he just made, to his own student loan. Like, so the student loans I took out for our kids was above and beyond the student loans they took out. 25%, like last month, he was doing nothing because he had no incentive. There was the government had, in the current administration, had set it up so that he didn't have to spend it. It was just going to continue to gain interest, but it was in deferment. He didn't have to spend any money. And he was incentivized to not bother paying it down. But through his own voluntary discomfort, his own choices to do the hard thing when nobody else is doing it, the thing that made him want to barf was to send a little check. And that $250 check and $250 check yesterday, turned into a $1,000 bump. And he is just like setting up the pins and knocking them down. He's absolutely not only going to get beyond debt, but he'll be in such a radically different financial position than I was at his age. And this is the main point I want to say is it really is for love's sake. This isn't just about you. It's about who you're modeling for, what you're seeing. My kids got to see me do those hard things. They see me driving a 2007 Toyota 4Runner, and it's not lost to me, Mitch, that both of us drive.
Yeah, 03, baby.
Yeah, let's go with the O's when it comes to the 4Runners. And it's Toyotas. More millionaires drive Toyotas than any other brand of car for a reason, friends, and they have them all paid off. And my excitement that you're seeing in this moment is just, there is a future. Do not give up hope. Do the one right next uncomfortable thing, and you'll be moving in the right direction.
I say we end it there.
Men and Women of Discomfort is our membership community, and we are open to everyone. But keep in mind, our tagline is, it's probably not for you. If we're wrong about that, or if you want to find out for yourself, you can find us at MWOD.io.